Hello, everyone. Welcome to the S2E02 podcast. My name is Eric Nicole, and I'm your host. If you are a first time listener, welcome to the conversation. And if you're a regular, I'm honored that you've decided to join me for another episode. The S2U podcast is centered around a network of conversations which are meant to connect us, to inspire us, to find our own confidence, our own voice, and to live our own truth. And who knows, we might even learn a little something new that ultimately allows us to live in the sweet spot that I like to call the S2U space of being. Each week, I have the privilege of sitting down for unscripted conversations with friends, family, colleagues, community leaders, and influencers that all share their own personal journeys. I hope that you enjoy our time together as much as I have. We are certainly going to laugh, and yes, we might even cry a little, but in the end, we're going to know that we're not alone during our life's journey. So, are you ready? Great, let's do this. Welcome to the conversation. All right, everyone, welcome to today's episode. We are so blessed to have you with us. I am super excited today to introduce you to my guest. I have been on this journey of wellness and mindfulness and self-care for years now. And through that process, I've been able to meet some really extraordinary people. And sometimes, as much as I don't like social media, I was actually able to find Jay on his Instagram page. So I'm excited today to welcome Jay Bradley. Hey, Jay.
Hi, I'm happy to be here, and I feel the same way about social media.
It's a blessing sometimes, but sometimes it can be a total suck of your time, right? It's just crazy.
Yeah, we're all
Just
about
crazy.
presence and being present, but yeah, we're, so distracted, but it's also essential to get our message out. So,
It is, and it's also essential to meet people. I realize that, you and I probably, even though we have many, many friends in common, as we found out on Instagram, the chances of us potentially meeting and crossing paths since I moved out of the desert may have been nil. So for me to be able to find you was really a blessing. And so I'm excited to have you today. For our listeners, I want to introduce Jay. Jay is the founder and creator of Breathe on It and is a breathwork healer and also teacher. We're going to talk about that. He is also the founder and creator of Chakra Bombs, which we're going to talk about as well. And that's BALMS.
yeah, yeah,
just
not
to
a
be
bomb.
just to be clear, not a bomb, but a balm. And we're going to talk about that. And you're also an author of a book called Live, Look, and Feel. And so I'm excited to welcome you on. Jay, with your permission, I would just like to read your bio a little bit because I think it really sets the tone for the conversation. Then we're going to jump right in. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So Jay grew up in a small town in Canada called Thunder Bay. I looked it up. It's absolutely beautiful. But you were an extra sensitive kid, which led to a series of bullying and physical attacks, you say from kindergarten to high school. You learned to hide and slowly put layers of protection up in order to fit in and at the very least to survive. Knowing you were gay didn't help, and you worked really hard to hide your truth. You used overspending, sleep, coffee, sex, perfectionism to numb out. I think a lot of us can relate to that. And the pain, though, prompted you to begin your own spiritual and emotional journey, which you've been on for 30 years, which is really remarkable. And in your bio, you said that you began to understand that a lack of self love and self worth and shame had taken over and really guided and directed you down a path that would require a lot of work to get out of. You were invited to a breathwork session, and that experience really changed your life. And you were able to release what you say is a lifetime of pain, shame, fear, self loathing, and grief in one session. So, we're going to talk about that, right? So, that you were really taken by this, and it really caused a shift in you and had you really focus and make it your mission to learn more about breath work, the benefits of it, and then also how it can be used as a healing modality. And you currently now use it as an inspiration for yourself to help people break through and to transform and to find this life, not only that they love, but that they deserve. So, did I do that justice?
That was beautiful. I couldn't have said it better myself.
I, I think you did because I think you
I'm
wrote it
like,
for you.
is that me? Wow.
That's you. But Jay, in what you said is I've been doing this podcast now for a year. I think we're 40 plus episodes in, and a common theme for many people within the LGBTQ plus community have had that same experience. Growing up in the towns that we grew in or the cities with the bullying and with the constant fear. And I'm curious to talk to you a little bit about that because I know for a fact for myself and the work that I've done over the past couple of years, I'm a breath holder. So I hold my breath constantly throughout the day, during the evening when doing sessions. I've had a few therapists tap me on the shoulder and say, "Are you gonna breathe through
Yeah.
this process?" So I want you to talk a little bit about your own journey and that realization as well, and how you came into this. I'd love to hear from you, your own words, what that was like for you growing up. First of all, I do have a question. So you're born in Thunder Bay in Canada.
Yes, Thunder Bay,
Okay.
Ontario, Canada. Yeah.
And then when did you move to the United States?
I moved in 2007. I moved to New York
Okay.
City first. Yeah.
Okay. So you spent quite a bit of time in Canada. I just wanted to set the tone for that. So please give us a little bit of background and history. What was it like for you growing up in Thunder Bay, Canada?
Yeah, it's interesting because you talked about the bullying and the lack of self-esteem, but from as early back on as I can remember, I also had health issues from, you know, from baby onward, actually. And
Hmm.
ironically, asthma, breathing issues, and allergies. Love the irony
Hmm.
there. So, yeah, so it was a journey of like, oh God, how do I feel better physically? I'm tired, I'm not well. And then, of course, as I moved on that path, I realized, wow, okay, this is actually emotional. There's some spiritual and emotional stuff going on. But it was just a lot of digging, a lot of layers that I had
Hmm.
to uncover. But that's why I love breath work, and we'll talk obviously about that today
Hmm.
because there's physical, emotional, and spiritual benefits to
Hmm.
breath work, and it kind of covers the gamut, which I love.
Quick question before you go on. So do you
Mm.
think, with your experience and what you found through your work with your clients, is this something, this breath issue, if I can call it that, does it start back when we're kids? Does it start early on? Or does it happen later in life when we become aware and we become more aware and tend to cover and hide and use that lack of breath as a protection or as an escape?
Yeah, well, if we watch babies breathe, they actually know how to breathe. We're born
Yeah.
knowing how to breathe. That belly goes up and it goes down, right? And somewhere along the way, I believe it's trauma response, our nervous system holds on, right? We put up guards and protection, and that our
Hmm.
breath is automatically connected to that. I I just did that, right?
Hmm.
I always say most of us live from here up,
Yep.
right? We're
Yep.
like shallow breaths, shallow life. That's what I like to say.
Yeah.
And so as we can make that breath more rich and deep and just be more aware of it, it really, really can help our nervous system and all aspects of our life. So I think it's something we learn along the way.
Is
And
it something too that you think should be taught
oh
in
God, yeah.
school?
God, don't you wish? I mean, I wish I
Yes.
had breath work when I was a kid. I think I would be so much further ahead. And it's something we absolutely, just like finances and how to organize our life. But breath is key. And yeah, we don't learn
Yeah.
anything about it.
Especially if it's something that's related to those trauma moments. And that if we could have the medical profession understand that trauma moment, if you're dealing with a psychologist or a psychotherapist or even a medical practitioner, if we're dealing with trauma, and there are obviously multiple modalities of being able to deal with that trauma, but we don't take breath into consideration. We don't take, are you holding on? Are you, you know, not breathing, which I have to do right now as well. So I think that would be really amazing to be able to have that be a key component of dealing with trauma, is
Yeah.
dealing with that aspect of breath work.
Yeah, and I think obviously it's something we do automatically without even thinking about, and I think we take it for granted, right?
Oh,
It's
100%.
like, yeah, okay,
100%.
we're alive, we're breathing, but when we actually use it as a tool
Hmm.
to really help unlock some of these
Hmm.
blocks and barriers and stuck
Sure.
emotions, it's unbelievable. I'm still amazed at how powerful just breathing can be, especially the kind of breath that I teach. Uh, it's remarkable, and like I said, in one session, what can show up, it's incredible.
Well, I want to get to that in a minute. So when you are obviously growing up, we talked about the bullying, we talked about that constant threat. When did you come out?
Yeah, well, I knew from grade two or three,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know,
Me too.
I, I definitely knew something was going on, but I think I didn't really come out until I met my first partner at 21.
Okay. Okay.
That's when I kind of shared it with my family and really, really came out.
Hmm. And were you still in Canada at that point, or were you living here in the US?
I was in Toronto,
In
yes.
Toronto.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was.
Similar story. I was saying I was 24, so I came out quite a
Yeah.
bit later when I met my first partner as well.
Yeah, it's such an experience, that whole coming out. Even now, I know my partner's going through it right now, and I see the challenges. It's that fear of not being accepted fully, right? Not being loved
Mhm.
for who we really are. And I think
Mhm.
that fear goes on. I think it's a lot easier now than it's ever been, but still challenging.
I'm starting to question, is it easier now?
Yeah.
I really am starting, especially now. I'm wondering if it is easier or if it's now more a sense of fear, which is going to cause a lot of illness as we move through. So I'm hoping that, with this enlightenment that we do have and the accessibility online to people like you and to other types of practitioners, that we can make this more accessible to people, especially now as they're coming out and dealing with what they have to deal with. So came out. Did you know, or did you have an inkling when you were in school, high school, college, that you were going to end up doing breath work?
Not at
No,
all.
not at
I
all.
I remember when it showed up and I started to, you know, succeed with breathwork. I was like, wow, never,
What
never
did
in a
you want to
million
do?
years.
What were you going to do?
Well, I mean, I've done so many things, and that's the thing. I guess I think it was some astrologer told me, you have like 20 lives in one in this lifetime, and I feel
Mhm,
like I've done at least 15 of them. So there's a lot of things I've done. I mean,
mhm,
y- uh, you know, I've been a personal trainer, I've been a massage therapist, I've been a wellness coach, I was an actor, singer,
mhm,
model, and then I moved into more of the holistic Reiki, hypnosis. So it's kind of all led to this, right? I
mhm,
started with the physical. How do I get
mhm,
well? How do I help others get well? Fitness was a big part of my life from 13 years old
mhm,
until until now. Actually, it's really a big part of my life. So I feel
mhm,
like I looked at a lot of us do, the physical first, diet, fitness, and then very quickly moved into, oh, there's more to this. Let's
mhm,
go under the surface. And that's kind of where the journey is led. So in some ways, I've had many people say it's no surprise, even from high school. Uh, what you're doing makes so much sense, knowing you
mhm,
back in high school, Jay. And
mhm,
so I guess it does fit. I think sometimes our life takes a different turn
mhm.
than we see. But I trust, I'm learning my friend's favorite saying is trust your life. And
Right.
doesn't that bring me
Mm.
peace? Like, trust your life, Jay.
Trust your life.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're so driven in school to learn English, math, history, science, and we teach all that. But I still, and maybe it's different in some more grounded areas that they're teaching this type of modality like breathwork, massage, the more holistic approach, but we don't really teach that. And so are we really exposed to it, right? I probably had my first massage when I went into the work that I'm in as a meeting planner and was at a hotel, and somebody gifted me a massage certificate. And I was like, whoa, that's super beneficial. And it felt good and it made me feel better and have more energy. So I was introduced to it that way, as opposed to really knowing all along that these amazing modalities were available. Right now, I'm the junkie. Everywhere that I go, everywhere I travel around the world, I'm like, what's the new thing? Is there a breathwork session? Is there, I did a sound bath healing on a floating bed
Yeah.
in Johannesburg, South Africa. I mean, like, I try to experience all these things. And it's made such a huge impact in my life and then in the lives that I've shared it with, right, who have tried it as well. So it would have been nice to have exposure to this at a much earlier age. I think high school and college would have been a really different place for me if I had
Oh,
had a breathwork session.
oh,
I
me
don't think
too.
I don't think I breathed once in college. I
Right? You
think
just
I held
hold
my
your
breath
breath. That was me in
because
high
we're
school, just fear of being beat up or being bullied, right?
yeah.
We put this guard up and yeah, it affects every aspect of our life, like I said. And I think that breath work is amazing because I tried all the modalities for me, and
Mhm.
this is why I got so hooked is nothing worked as quickly and effectively as this particular breath. So, may not be for everybody. Other people have a
Right.
different tool that works, but
Right.
I pretty much like you, I've tried so many different things and they're all
Mhm.
amazing in their own way.
Mhm.
But definitely, this is the path that led me here.
And practitioners are different, right?
Yeah,
Practitioners have different energy,
that's
and
right.
you get different things from different practitioners that you meet along the way. And I've had the privilege of meeting some extraordinary people like you, and it's just great to know that they're out there. So let's just
Yeah.
jump right into this conversation on breath work, and we'll talk a little bit about chakras as well. But you go to this breath work session. First of all, did you have any idea what you were getting yourself into? And then secondly, I really want to know what, if you can explain it, so that the listener who may not have experienced can understand, what was that first session like for you? Because obviously you make a very bold statement in that you were able to release all of that trauma in one session. So let's give the listener an education and what for you, what that was like.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It was a small gay men's group. A friend invited me, and I was kind of like, I tried it all. Like, I was a bit cynical, right? I'm like, ah,
Mhm,
God, a breathwork circle. Okay, nothing else going on tonight. Glad I went. So it was very small, probably 5 men.
Hmm.
And the teacher, just explained the breath that we were going to do, which is the one I've adopted. It's called three-part circular breath or conscious connected breath. And we'll talk about it, but it's essentially in
Hmm.
and out of the mouth, in the
Hmm.
belly first, into the chest, and out. So it's a nice kind of a figure eight breath. And he just played some music, played the didgeridoo at the end, and
Hmm.
what happened was so profound for me. First of all, I remember getting really, really hot to
Hmm.
the point where I was actually soaked.
Hmm.
And then towards the end, I was shivering and freezing. So there
Hmm.
was a lot of fluctuation in body temperature, but along the way, just a lot of emotion. Like
Hmm.
within 5 minutes or less, I was crying and got to the point where I felt like sobbing.
Hmm.
Really wanted to vocalize and let out some sound. You
Hmm.
know, this teacher was kind of particular about, okay, don't let out any sound, just keep breathing. I'm the opposite. Let out sound.
Hmm.
But I really, really felt what was interesting, talk about chakras, was feeling some of these energy points pulsating and throbbing and opening. And I knew in that moment that there was, well, sacral. I felt a lot of it around my sacral,
Hmm.
which is, below the belly button. And I knew that that was a lot of shame around sexuality. Like I knew
Hmm. Yep.
energetically what was going on. It was an opening and release of all of the emotions that I held in that area. Felt a lot in the solar plexus and the heart. And by the end, I just felt so much lighter.
Hmm.
And I was tapped into almost like I could feel my cells,
Hmm.
that feeling of,
Hmm.
holy crap, so much more than this physical body. I could feel the vibration. And the big saying I have with breathwork is it reminds you who you really are.
Hmm.
And in that moment, I was like, oh, I'm not my depression. I'm not
Hmm.
this anxiety. I'm not all of these addictive habits or, fears. I'm really good. I'm really
Hmm.
good. I'm really amazing, actually. And I
Yeah.
really love myself. So it brings you to a place of self-love. I got all of that and more in one
In
session.
one session. So, a shameless plug for my friend Lawrence Zarian, who has his own podcast called You Are Beautiful. And he just or recently interviewed Jason Mraz, who I am now obsessed with. I don't know if you've ever heard him talk,
I haven't.
but he shared an amazing story. And I strongly recommend people to go listen to it. I'm going to put it up on our social media. But what was interesting when you were talking about that, about your body and the sensations you were feeling, is he used the word meat package, which I thought was really funny. This meat package that we walk around the earth in, right? This is
Yeah.
our rented vehicle. And I think that's really important because, and it sent shivers down my entire body when he said that, because I realized that so much of what we go through on a daily basis, and those of us who are really focusing on being acutely aware of all the sensations in our body from our head to our toes. I think many people walk around this earth through their lives and aren't connected to their own bodies, aren't connected to their own energy because they simply aren't necessarily educated in the chakras and in the importance of breath work and relaxation and self-care and meditation. And I recently had a friend who asked me what my daily ritual was in the morning because he thought, "How do you get through the day with an hour of this and an hour of that?" And I said, "It's individual to every person, right? My morning ritual is literally 15 minutes, four different modalities. 15 minutes.
Hmm.
I'm done in an hour. I wake up, feed the dog. She goes out, she pees, she comes back in, she eats, she lays down, goes back to bed for an hour. In that hour that I'm up, I do those four practices. And those four practices make me acutely aware of my body and where my intention is for the day." And I shared with him and said, just try it a couple times, see what works for you. If the meditation doesn't work, just do the breath. If the breath doesn't work, just do the yoga, but try something. And it's amazing that he's called several times and said, that he used to jump out of bed in the morning, run, jump in the shower, get to the gym, work out, come back, shower in his suit and at his desk, and didn't even feel like he was in his own body. He's like, I never realized what that was until you said you presence yourself every morning. And so I think people get a little overwhelmed with it. I'm sure a lot of your clients come to you and they're maybe a little hesitant or come like you did, this breathwork class. Okay, I won't go try it out. But once they experience it, there's an opportunity for them to have an experience of something that shifts for them.
Hmm.
right? I did a sound bath healing in Costa Rica with my now business partner, Yanina. And it was in the hour of meditation where she also chanted. I didn't know what she was saying. I had no concept of what she was saying, but like you in this session, I sobbed for an hour. And I
Mm,
woke up at the end of that session and I felt like all of the weight
mm.
and the goop from my divorce that had happened back in 2018 and 19 disappeared. And I felt like I lost 50 pounds of weight. And ever since then, there's been this lightness. And so for you, your experience was life changing. For many other people that I know, it was life changing. So when you walk out of that session that you had, and did you know in that moment you had released all that, or did it come to you over the next couple of days, weeks, months? What was that experience like?
Yeah, first of all, I love that you have your morning ritual or practice. I talk a lot about that, the consistent
Yeah.
practice in the morning to get centered. Because I don't know about you, but I don't wake up like, oh, I love life. Life is, it's kind of like, oh, so I got to
A
work.
hundred percent.
I have to work at like, okay. Anyway, so that's
That's
amazing.
true.
I knew right away. I felt like
Really.
I was a bit addicted, a bit hooked to this
Hmm.
practice. I'm like, what if this happened in one session? What would happen if I did this regularly, right?
Hmm.
So I did go to a number of his classes, the teacher, and then just committed I said to myself, I'm just going to lay down and breathe at home. We
Hmm.
breathe to music for this particular style of breathwork. So I just played some music, laid down at home, and every time something new came up, I was kind of blown away at how much stuff could keep coming up. I probably did that every day for 3 months,
Hmm.
which is really intense. And
Hmm.
then yeah, and then started to study with a couple of teachers and then really make this modality that I could share with others.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of how it started. But
Yeah.
yeah, interestingly enough, just when you think, oh God, nothing more can come up, because I think I always thought I was pretty healthy. I knew I had some stuff, but it's amazing when you dig deep and you breathe. Because here's the thing about breath work. And all the healing is not just our pain and trauma, it's actually our
Hmm.
ancestors and our family. And we pick up on all of that. And it's actually in our DNA. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's a big job,
Yeah.
but if we
Hmm.
commit to healing, it's also healing for our family. And so this is
Yeah.
what was going on for me and still is.
Yeah. It's so fascinating that you say that because I met a woman by the name of Mallory and she was a guest on my podcast a couple of months ago and she has an organization called the Inheritance Project. But it's not
Mhm.
inheritance what you think it is. It's the inheritance of what you bring with you from
Yeah,
your life and from your family and from your ancestors. And it's fascinating when you look at that, what we bring with us to our lives. And I worry sometimes, especially now, given the climate that we're in, of this uncertainty of what's to come, that we get ahead of ourselves in our own self-care and our own connection to our bodies. And I really believe in, and please chime in if you do as well, that now more than ever, we need to be paying attention to ourselves first and practicing that self-care. Because if we don't care for ourselves first and we don't do what we need to do to protect our vessel, our vehicle, our rented vehicle for
Mhm.
this journey, then we're no good to anyone else. We can't help anyone else. And I think some people try where we give to others and give to others and give to others, but you have to give to yourself. And for some people, that shows up as a little bit selfish or a little bit narcissistic. And I'm shifting that conversation. I love to help people. I love to bring people together. I love to introduce people to people like you. But I also know that for me to be able to be centered and to be the best that I can be and the healthiest that I can be is then going to serve others as well. Do you find that in your practice as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The oxygen mask, right? Got to put it on
Mhm.
ourselves first. So I definitely find that. I mean, it's some people can call it selfish, but it's really not. It's an act of self-love because we
Mhm.
are here. We're here to share our gifts, and most of us are too caught up in our shit, right, and our heads and our traumas to even get out there and do that. So yeah, putting ourselves
Mhm.
first, finding some sort of base, some groundedness, and then working through some of those blocks and barriers. I mean,
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah. What are some of the physiological effects of this breath work? So, for the person who's listening who may not be exposed to this, obviously, breath is important. We need it. But can you talk a little bit about some of the things that it does to your body?
Yeah. Well, like I said, physically, there's a lot of benefits. We detox our body. We're
Hmm.
flushing cells, flushing deep toxins, I should say, through our cells, and we're becoming more alkaline. Our blood is becoming more alkaline, which is always a healthy place to be. It can help with memory. Definitely helps with physical pain. That's one thing people report very quickly is, oh my God, my pain is gone after one session.
Mhm.
It's because we're bringing in oxygen and, bringing attention to that pain, releasing the emotion underneath, and whew, suddenly it's gone. So there's benefits there. We release oxytocin, which is the feel-good hormone, endorphins, something called DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which is in
Mhm.
ayahuasca, which is a plant medicine. There's still studies going on with this, but there is some DMT in our pineal gland, third eye, and in our lungs. So when we breathe this deep for an extended period, we release some of that. So that gives
Mhm.
us a bit of an out of body experience, and it's fascinating. So lots of physical benefits. The thing I like to tell people with this particular style of breath too to be aware of is some of the side effects.
Mhm.
If you've done breath work, it's a little
I wasn't
freaky.
going to bring it up. I'm gonna let you bring it up. I
Oh
wasn't going
yeah,
to
yeah,
bring it up.
yeah, for sure. Something called tetany or lobster claw, as my teacher calls it.
Yeah.
It's a numbness and tingling in your hands, in your arms, sometimes your feet, even around your mouth. Your hands may even go like claws. It might even rise off the floor or wherever you're lying. And it again, it can be freaky, but if you know it's going to happen, then you're prepared. It's just an excess of carbon dioxide leaving the body.
Mhm.
We're mixing up the flow of oxygen, carbon
Yeah.
dioxide. And we also believe that, it's a lot of energy from the heart moving through your hands. And so lots of shifts going on with that. Not everybody gets tetany, but
Mhm.
a lot of people yawn, get a little dry mouth, a little lightheaded in the beginning. But the thing I look for and what I love when I'm working with clients is looking for a heaviness, a resistance, maybe even a pain or something calling to you in your body. And it shows up sometimes very quickly for people. And that's where we like to go because our body talks to us all the
Mhm.
time. And when we do breath work, it actually forces us to listen because
Mhm.
things magnify. So if you have depression, if you have anxiety, if you have a physical pain in your body, I tell people very, very good chance it's going to actually get
Magnify.
increased,
Yeah.
magnified. And that's a good thing. So
Mhm.
then we can work at doing some energy release and other techniques when we're breathing.
Mhm.
So lots of never a dull moment when it comes to breath work.
No, but it's also something that I want people to understand. This is not, I hear a lot of people say this is kind of airy-fairy or it's kind of, woo-woo, I think is another term that they use. And I think it's important for people to understand and to realize that this kind of practice, breath work, meditation, all of these types of things has been around for a very long time. It's just been overshadowed by Western medicine, which throws medication at a symptom or an issue. And I'm a firm believer in medication when it's necessary, but I'm
So
also a
am I.
believer in that there are, don't get me wrong, I'm fully for it and have used it gratefully. But I also know that my body, myself, is one that needs to be attended to holistically as well. And because that's just the makeup of my body. And so my body doesn't respond well to some, I'll call one on myself. I was dealing with some anxiety and depression after COVID and after the shutdown. And like many people, we went into seclusion. I had also just come out of a very, very tumultuously insane separation and divorce. And so went right into lockdown and then a year of that. So I didn't have a chance to really deal with the anxiety and the depression that I had until much later, like 2021, 2022.
Mm.
And, you know, first question was, well, let's put you on XYZ drug. Let's put you on XYZ anti-anxiety medication. And I'm not kidding, Jay, when I tell you they tried 6 medications and none of them worked.
Wow.
My body just did not respond to all of these medications. So I went to seek out secondary advice and said, before you put me on something even stronger, let me just have a conversation with my naturopath. And I had a conversation with my naturopath. He recommended something. Hey, let's give it a shot. Let's give it a try. That coupled with a breathwork session, multiple breathwork sessions, meditation, and all that has completely changed my anxiety and my depression. And it's not that it's not still there. I always
Yeah.
tell people it's still there,
Mm.
but I now have the tools necessary. Now, I also will caveat this say if you have physical symptoms that you feel need the attention of a doctor, see the doctor. I thought I was dealing with some anxiety earlier this year. Ended up I was in AFib. So I encourage people to be present and to be aware. So seek the doctor's advice and attention. I'm glad that I did because I was able to get that handled with a procedure. But for the most part, the anxiety and that, which is very different sensation and feeling for me than that palpitation, can be addressed by these holistic approaches. And so for me, I was able to find something, but that doesn't mean that it goes away. There are days that I have a difficult time getting up and getting going and out of bed in the morning. And so for me, that breath work and that meditation and that yoga, the stretching, the activity of it all has been critical for my mental health. And so I'm sure you see that significantly with your clients as well, even if they don't know that's going to be the benefit. If they continue and they stay active and it works for them, the effects are not always one in one session. Sometimes they're in multiple, but over the course of time, they will see drastic shifts and changes. I know I've seen it firsthand with friends, myself included. So I'm glad that there are people out in this world like you who do this
Yeah.
and who do it with such a passion. You're currently out in the Coachella Valley, right?
Yeah.
And so you obviously have quite a presence on social media. You're also a teacher and you coach. So you have a little bit broader exposure than some. Talk a little bit more, if you will. You teach certification for breathwork, which is something that I find really fascinating. Then we're going to talk a little bit as well about the chakras, because that's something that I don't think a lot of people are exposed to, but it's a big part of this healing process that goes great with breathwork.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to address what you said
Sure.
around
Yeah.
regular practice. People come to a breathwork session or class blown away, right? Oh, I'm going to see you every week, or never see them again.
Right.
Like, yes, it helps. Yes, I will say it permanently changes and
Yeah.
shifts your energy. Full body goosebumps on that one. But you gotta keep doing things. Like there's no time in this life anyway that we can stop. We need some consistent practice in order to stay in that zone. So thank you
Hmm.
for saying that. And
Sure.
it's so important. And me as a teacher and healer, I gotta walk the walk. If I'm not laying down to breathe at least once or twice a week, then I'm
Hmm.
not going to be at my best, and I'm, going to be faking it, which I need
Right.
to do. So, yeah,
Right.
because trust me, I'll also fall into old patterns, and it's like, oh
Hmm.
God, lay down and breathe, Jay. So, yeah, good reminder. The teacher training came to me really, people started to ask me. I combined this sort of breath work with Ho'oponopono, which is a beautiful Hawaiian forgiveness
Hmm.
practice. And I
Hmm.
would teach this class regularly in Hollywood. And yeah, people started to approach me like, I want to learn from you. Can you teach me how to do this? I could see myself doing this. And so that was years ago. And I very quickly kind of created this certification
Hmm.
around a lot of the things I didn't learn from my teachers. I'm like, let's add that in because there was a
Hmm.
lot I didn't get. And then, yeah, and just knowing, really teaching from the heart, knowing what I
Hmm.
needed. And
Hmm.
that's kind of how I created this class. And now it's been interesting, especially with Zoom, having
Hmm.
a lot of students all over the world, especially in the UK and in Europe. And
Hmm.
so I do an introduction and an advanced training
Hmm.
with breathwork, both online and in person, depending on the
Hmm.
schedule.
Hmm.
And I think that's one of my biggest joys is working with other therapists, coaches, and healers because we get each other,
Hmm.
and those people who come are often ready to go deep. They've tried other things and it hasn't worked, and they're really ready to dig in. And what I love most is supporting people to use their unique gifts and talents. Like you said, so many modalities out there. So let's bring breathwork in and combine it with sound or
Hmm.
hypnosis or your Reiki or human design. Like you can actually create your own modality bringing in breath work. So, yeah, it's been a joy. It really is.
Do you think that we're all born with these abilities to heal, or do you feel that that's something that is specific to the person? That kind of
Heal
intuition.
ourselves or to help heal others.
Both.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Well,
think we're all able to heal ourselves.
yeah, well, I'm just thinking about people, even in my family, who have no interest in the spiritual,
Hmm.
emotional work, but they're also super happy and life works.
Hmm.
And, they don't,
Hmm.
for whatever reason, their soul hasn't called them to some of the heavier
Hmm.
stuff, I guess I could say. So I would think the answer I would say is no.
Hmm.
I think we all have the ability, but honestly, it's our pain and our struggles
Hmm.
that make us a better healer and teacher, right?
Hmm.
So those people who haven't really struggled and suffered, maybe it can be hard to relate and have empathy for
Hmm.
those other people struggling. I know people firsthand who are kind of like, "Ah, just snap out of it. You know, why are they struggling so much? It's like life's not that hard. Really
Yeah.
easy for them to say, but when you
Hmm.
have all this other stuff going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say. we're called to it if we've had enough pain and struggling. We're like, I want to help others through this, maybe speed up their process. That was my
Sure.
goal. What if I could
Mhm.
speed up people's process instead of taking decades? What if they could
Right.
get it done in just a few years?
Right. Well, and I also think it's something that the individual has to be open to as well. The healing process is something that is personal, and you have to be ready. And some are ready early, and some aren't. I have somebody in my mind right now, unfortunately, who passed away who never healed, and I'm so sad for him. It was my dad,
Oh,
and he just lived a lifetime of pain and trauma and upset, and never really dealt. And released, and yet was so smart, PhD in psychology, right? And
wow.
never healed himself. And I was always so sad for him, as I have been for a few other people. But
Yeah.
I think we are our best healers. I feel like we're all here on this earth to be of service, whether that
Yes.
service means to offer a kind ear or to offer something like you do with your sound healing.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think I think healing can be looked at in different ways, right?
yeah.
We can, be a great salesperson and we're connecting
Mhm,
with people, and that's very
mhm,
healing, making people feel good.
mhm.
So there's different forms, but in particular, yeah, this
Yep.
form of healing, I think the healing's never done. I think we should be clear on that too, right? Because
Yes.
healed,
Yes. Never.
unfortunately,
Never, never. I believe we take it in the next lifetime. That's why I was so kind of taking it with my dad. I want him to find some peace and
yeah.
solace, hopefully soon.
I think I
Um,
always say, if we could feel, this is just my easy
yeah,
description, if we could feel good
yeah,
most of the time or 80% of the time, I think we've done a good job,
yes.
right?
Listen, life is life, and it's going to throw you circumstances. Like you said it earlier, you weren't your circumstances growing up. So you were able to see past that. And I really believe that we're not our circumstances, and they don't define us. They may push us in certain directions through our journey, but they don't define us. So take that step now, if you can, just for our remaining time together. Maybe give the Cliff Notes version of chakras, if you don't mind.
Yeah, chakras. I love it. Chakras are basically discs, spinning discs of energy in our body. I'm super practical when it comes to
Hmm.
chakras, actually. We deal with seven main chakras, which
Hmm.
actually I can show you the colors and visuals. These are the chakra
Hmm.
bombs for those watching. We
Yeah.
have we have the root, which is the base chakra. It's red. We can talk more about them. The
Yeah.
sacral chakra, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown. And what's so beautiful about these is they're energy points that, when open and aligned, they spin clockwise.
Hmm.
Energetically, things flow. Our life seems to work. We don't have a lot of physical discomfort. When they get blocked or muffled or stuck based from stress or from even diet or environment or thought process, we may start to feel discomfort in our body in those particular areas.
Hmm.
And this is wonderful. Again, our body talks to us. And so if we can get in, figure out usually it's an emotion that's stuck in those those chakras that kind of prevent it from flowing.
Hmm.
And eventually, I truly believe that this can lead to illness and, dis-ease in our body. So the
Hmm.
earlier we can kind of tune in and listen, the better. And each chakra has a different color, but also
Hmm.
represents different aspects of our life. So when I go in with clients with breathwork in particular, I love to do somatic sort of energy release work.
Hmm.
We converse with that emotion. We first of all listen to where we're being drawn. And again, clients will feel resistance or attention or restriction in certain parts. And then we can go in and, what is this, right? How long have you been with this person? What
Hmm.
emotion are you holding? What's your job? And then we can kind of converse and then clear some of this energy and get those chakras spinning again. It's fascinating. It sounds woo-woo in a way, but it's also super practical because everything is energy, quantum physics.
Everything.
Why is our
Yeah.
body any different? We hold trauma, we hold memories, and we hold stuck emotion. Let's use a divorce, right?
Hmm.
Largely heart. We just close
Hmm.
up and we hold pain and sometimes depression and grief. So when we can breathe in, tune in, just acknowledging most of the time is enough. Just acknowledging, oh, this is here. It's from this and this and this, or it was
Hmm.
passed on from my mother. Just
Hmm.
that alone can help to release and heal.
It's
That
acknowledging. It's
yeah,
acknowledging.
yeah,
Yeah.
awareness. Awareness. Like,
Awareness.
feel it to heal it is my favorite
Oh,
saying.
I like that. Feel it to heal it. I like that.
Yeah, and where energy goes, where attention flows. Sorry, where yeah. So when we pay attention to that certain body part or that energy, energy flows and starts to release and balance.
Yeah. I'm grinning this kind of sheepish grin while you're sharing this because after the divorce was final, I moved to San Diego and it was just a rough year. And I remember going to have a session with a practitioner that I use, and she uses a particular modality to, obviously, as you mentioned, check which way that your energy's spinning. But it was so funny. I laid down on the table and she went to test it. And not only was it not spinning in the clockwise direction, it was hurling counterclockwise
Counter,
and
yeah.
she counterclockwise. And I saw it with my own eyes. And she said, "We have some work to do over the next hour." And I'm telling you, again, just one of those experiences where the the unexpected pain that that separation and divorce caused was palpable at best, but at worst was traumatizing. And I
Yeah.
didn't realize just the effect of that one session would be. And I typically will go in and adjust periodically just to kind of give myself a quote tune up, if you will.
Yeah.
But that particular session, like your one session, I walked out of there feeling like the weight of the world had been lifted off my shoulders and realized. And what it did was, and I want the listeners to understand, and I think this is hopefully the key takeaway with everyone, that it makes you acutely aware of the sensations in your body, of what your body is telling you, because your body is going to tell you everything you need to know.
I love that. That is absolutely true. I think we think we're fine most of the time, or we're like, okay, I'm a little stressed. We lay down and breathe, for example, and we're like,
Hmm.
wow. I think the biggest thing I hear from people with breath work is that was unexpected.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, breath brings us awareness.
I went swimming in a cenote in Peru, Mexico. And the thoughts that were going through my head as I was in there just meditating was, it's a wonder we can all function in the morning when we get up. There's so much hurling at us every single day, from the news to our families, to our relationships, to our work, to the economy, to the election, everything. And it's amazing we can even function with the amount of information and the amount of energy that's coming at us. And I hope the takeaway for people, again, is that why this is so important is because we are coming to a place in our world. For me personally, this is just how I'm looking at it, that at the end of our life, all of our friends, all of our family, all of our possessions, all the experiences that we have are gifts in all aspects. But what we have to answer to is ourselves at the very end. And I really want to make sure that I live this life of happiness and joy and a sense of presence, not
Mm.
saying that life won't be dealt circumstances, not saying that we're not going to have to deal with difficulties, but these practices that are out there are designed to help us push through and to push past. And sometimes not quickly, like you said, it could take time.
Yeah.
But the chakras are really important to pay attention to. And even if somebody isn't necessarily maybe up right now for running out and getting their chakras aligned, as we've just
Mm.
described, I ask them to get educated. Go to your site, watch the video, watch the training, watch the course that you offer. Go get some information. Just go sit in on a class. Even if you're not that into it. I went to a yoga class a while ago, a different type of yoga that I've never done before. And I just wanted to observe. I wanted to take time to really understand it, and said to the teacher, I said, I may not go through all the movements, but I would love to just watch, even just watching the process and
Mm.
watching the people go through the moves and to go through the poses and to watch them from when they went in to when they came out
Yeah.
was incredibly transformative as well. And I'm sure you see that. You're obviously, when you're teaching a class, you're not only protecting yourself from all the energy that's hurling around that room, you are probably also, needing to watch your clients that are taking your class, because everyone's going to go through a different experience. So
Yeah.
I'm really in awe of the practitioners like yourself that do this, because you do carry a huge weight and you're caring for these people that are there to heal and to learn and to transition. And so a huge kudos to you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I really pride myself in trying to speak with everybody. If it is a group breath work, I
Mhm.
realize every single person is in a different place. How can I possibly guide? Well, it's through our words, right? And through just
Mhm.
trying to think about all of the different experiences and incorporating everyone. Because some people may not feel anything at all. And I got to say that during breath work. It's
Yeah.
okay, right? FOMO. Everyone has FOMO. Why is that person having a great experience? So just telling that person it's okay. You're exactly
Mhm.
where you're at.
And it doesn't mean that they're not going to feel something later.
In the future, I've seen that many times, 3 or 4 sessions
Oh,
in. Wow.
my mom, prime example. She's like, I didn't get that. I don't understand it. 3 days later, she's like, oh, I feel different. Why is that? I'm like, it's the class you just took
Oh,
3 days ago. And
oh.
that's transition. So I see it quite a bit happening later. So I don't want people to feel, unsuccessful if they take a class or take a session and don't necessarily notice anything. Just do it. Try it. You'll never know unless you try it.
For sure. I think the biggest thing we can say is breathwork in particular takes you out of your head into your
Hmm.
heart chakra. We spend too much time in our heads. Maybe a good place for like being logical and organized, whatever, but mostly it's not a good place. It's a crazy place.
I've said that in my premiere episode. I said that my head can be a very dangerous place to
Oh,
be at
it's
times.
awful. I spent way too much time there. And this is
Hmm.
why we need at least people like us, type A, whatever,
Yeah.
breathwork, because it reminds us, oh,
Yeah.
okay, back to the heart, back to the heart.
So I could talk to you all day. I think we could spend a lot of time chatting. I'm just kind of enamored at the moment with this conversation and so grateful. So I have a request and then two final questions for you as we wrap this up. The request is, will you come back again and maybe some other time and talk a little bit more in depth about chakras and about the chakra bombs and kind of what they do and the benefits that they offer? I think that's a really cool and important conversation to have. I think it's its episode in and of itself. So
Yeah,
would you come back at some point and
I
grace
would
us with
love
that
to.
conversation?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
this is like
Good.
talking with a great friend over coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So I appreciate it. I look forward to it.
Mhm.
So my last two questions. Question number one is, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? What do you see yourself doing?
Wow, that's such a great question. I have been contemplating perhaps having other teachers share almost like an organization where some of my students can go out and teach, and get the message out, or at least collaborating with certain students in different parts of the world and
Mhm.
branching out on this teaching and certifying breath work. I do see another book for sure, and that just the clarity hasn't quite dropped in, but I love to write, so definitely another book launch. And I love being on camera, I just something around sharing this message on camera. Don't know what that is. Maybe being just a guest expert, or having some sort of inspiring reality show. That's always been on the radar for me. So there's a few things anyway.
Okay, I'm going to shift you to talk show, not reality, please. Please.
Okay.
There aren't enough hours in the day for
Inspiring
you.
reality show. There's
Inspiring
a
reality.
difference.
Okay. I stand corrected, Jay. I stand corrected. Inspiring reality. That needs a
Yes,
whole new channel because I don't see any channels for that right now. So
exactly. Just a little
that,
early. Give it some time.
we'll give it some time. Oh, listen, as I was sharing with you before we jumped on, I mean, this wellness, I think people have sometimes seen it as a fad. It is not. It is going to be paramount,
Oh,
paramount. So I can't wait and can't wait to see that success for you. So we're going to go ahead and put the link to your website and your book and some of your content on our social media page. And I encourage people to go check out your work. If you're out in the Coachella Valley, go to a class. If you're not, you're online, sign up for a class, do it. You will absolutely love Jay. And I, again, thank you for your time today. I'm going to ask you one final question.
okay.
And that is what I ask all of my guests. If you could go back to that young elementary school Jay who was faced with the bullying and faced with that fear, what would you tell him about his life today?
Hmm. Hmm. I would tell little Jay that not to allow other people to take your power away, that you are so powerful and so beautiful and so strong, and you have a great future, and you're hypersensitive, which is a gift. And this sensitivity, uh, yeah, the sensitivity is what has allowed you to let people take that energy. So just that awareness as a young kid growing up, I think would have been life-changing for me, right? Knowing that, oh, wow, I can keep my power, not giving it away. and probably a little bit about the solar plexus, the self-worth chakra. Hey, little Jay, breathe in,
All
energize
right.
that
All
center.
right, kindergartner Jay, breathe in. Breathe in, baby. Breathe
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say about that, which is interesting, is we talked about this a couple episodes ago. So many of us were bullied and challenged from a very young age. And someone said to me that, they never felt like they would be like that person that bullied them. And I brought the question up and said, we don't know what that person's life was like that was the bully.
That's
We
right.
have no idea what their home life was like, what they were dealing with, the insecurities that they were dealing with inside. And so I used to fault them and blame them for what they did to me and to kids like you and to others. But now I have some empathy for them because I also realized that they were struggling too. And it came out at a reunion, at one of our high school reunions, and an apology from one of them, and said, I didn't
Oh,
realize what I was doing to you until I watched my own child go through it. And I
ah,
apologize for what I did. And I had some funny quip that I quipped back with, but that was a really beautiful moment because I realized in that moment that even though that was the worst time in my life, being bullied and being afraid, to know that they felt the same and they would have definitely benefited from that solar plexus conversation as well. School might have been a little different.
oh,
So,
that's
Jay,
amazing. Glad you had that healing opportunity.
oh yeah, and it was great. And again, my little funny quip was probably not as taken as well as it could have been. But in jest, I was being a little bit serious as well. But I had that opportunity to heal. And even looking at the reunion is a whole other episode. But looking at the reunion and having a chance to reconnect with these people so many years later, we just realized we were all just afraid. We were all just fearful. We all had our own, what we called earlier, stuff to deal with. But I am going to live for a day where Jay Bradley teaching in classrooms around the country this
Mhm.
great work. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for spending time with us. I really appreciate you. And I'm really grateful that you're out in the world doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Eric. I think you're amazing too. And thank you
Oh,
for having me on. It's been
anytime. You're always welcome. Take care.
okay. Bye.
All right, everyone. Thank you again for joining us on today's episode. I hope our conversation resonated with you like it did me, and I cannot wait to sit down with you all again next week. Remember to subscribe to the Just Do You podcast on your favorite platform so you can make sure not to miss a new episode, which drop every Thursday. If you like what you hear, you can easily share the podcast and episode directly with your friends. And if you would, rate us and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. You can also follow us on Instagram at Just Do You Pod. As you go out into the world today, remember to just do you. All right, talk next week.